Right. Welcome to yet another catch-up for performance on the Blob viewer and Monaco and all related topics. So, Dennis, you have your first point. Kick us off, please.
Yeah. So yes, during the last call, we said that we are going to preload Monaco globally on all the pages. And yes, that merge request was merged, went live, but I saw the numbers really messed up for the LCP performance. So I had to come up with the updated version of the merge request, even though I didn't see any logic in those numbers going up. But then I was pointed out to Team's message about Sentinel's rollout that might have affected, because it literally happened like within the same day. So those numbers were I don't know what was causing the numbers, but anyway, this forced me to think about better solution for globally preloading Monaco.
How does Sentinel-1 affect this? Sentinel-1 is installed on the machines that we use, but does it affect production? Or you mean that your usage of the website? Just to check.
That I'm referring to the message that that actually Team wrote, and maybe I interpreted it
most probably, yeah.
Wrong. Yes. So okay, so probably your message meant that the client's machines will be slower, right, Tim?
Which message? I read a lot of message.
Yeah, so
please be aware that the rollout of Sentinel has
exactly
performance. Yes, yeah. This is client.
Okay, this is client. Okay.
Yes.
Oh well.
This is the new virus scanner that is installed on your machine.
Yeah. I know. Like it drives me crazy completely, especially when one needs to do the tests and things. It significantly slows down the R specs. It's crazy, but
it should be better because they excluded all of development out of the group, and they basically deactivated it. So I had yesterday the experience; it was much faster. What really helps is restarting, because Sentinel is attaching itself to the processes. And if you don't restart, it's still doing the same checks. So restarting, and since that, it's, yeah, the R spec is doable again.
Okay, cool. We'll do that. Then okay, then we can discard the part about that message in my comment. So technically, that was Monaco then that was messing up the numbers, and it didn't make any sense really. But nevertheless, that was the problem. So technically we can switch to the okay. We'll get to the updated version of this solution later after Team's points done.
Cool. Then yes, then I basically took this out of your comment, because I didn't write Sentinel in your comment. I read Sentry, that we are activating some Sentry stuff again.
Right.
Good. Yeah, because I'm getting then, of course, the pings as soon as our FCP numbers go up, because it's always the same. As soon as we do some changes like that, it's exactly the week where the key review meeting is, and one of the KPIs is the LCP of the 5 most used routes that we are activating, so that those don't go up. And of course, they went up. And the meeting was yesterday. But I wrote already yesterday a long explanation that this is like balancing out. And that's exactly what we are doing. We are in reality balancing out between the full user experience and the full package, because we are not a news page where you hit one page, read it, and go away. You are doing something, most probably like us, doing it for the whole day, and that every day. So that's what we are optimizing there for, but we need to balance this out. So my thought was now, and my suggestion would be, on one hand, what we also discussed already, I think, a couple of weeks ago in the call, and I need to find a good solution how we would switch the numbers. And we need to also verify, because not all of the hot cache runs are working properly, would be that we switch also to hot caching, like the quality team is doing. That's they are running already everything with hot cache. But in the meantime, and to also improve search crawling and really first hits, is to basically do the preloading of Monaco only when it's not your first hit. You know what I mean? So if you don't have any cookies, anything in the machine, if it's really just cold cache, you hit a page, don't preload it. And then on the second page, you would start preloading, because the chances that you will hit then already some page with Monaco is anyhow not that high. And I would say 99.9% of our users are recurring users that are there, and that would mean that this is a minimal hit, but this would help us keep the LCP measurements for code cache low, and which means search crawling and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll get to the improved version of this thing later in the technically. Okay. Production, the numbers already went down because the change hit the production. When was it? In production, it was 1 week ago. So the numbers should have gone down for all the five main routes. But now, at least that's what I see from the dashboard as well.
What does the leaderboard say? The leaderboard is currently at
this is the problematic now, because there is no this quick switch. So I'm switching manually to, the LCP dev leaderboard says 66.
Good, that's where we are, because I think 2 days ago it was still at 50%, and everyone was like, oh my god, 50%.
No, yeah, you can always blame it on me. That's fine.
No worries, I'm not blaming it on anyone. I'm blaming it on.
It's like the LCP numbers go up. Oh, Dennis is experimenting. Okay.
Right. But yeah, I think to some extent that's exactly where we want to get. It's this balance of figuring out ways how to improve the actual user experience. And I wrote also a longer comment, because the quality team wants to increase the numbers, the thresholds for API returns. And there was now a longer discussion, because product says that the investment for it is too high. And I wrote a longer blog post why performance is important, and what the actual impact is, that you can convert it to money in reality. And that's something I strongly believe. And there I have also separated, because what we need to get into the minds of more people is that if users in the SAS scores, and which is the main driver of everything, when they say performance, they can't differentiate between reliability and actual performance. And if you read the comments, you will see that 40, maybe 50% of the comments are rather related to reliability, which is a completely different aspect of it, and that is rather more the backend stuff. But of course, the performance is the same thing, and in expectation and how fast you can do stuff. But that's where we need to land in reality. In the end, it's not just having nice numbers in some stats, but it's really that we want to have an impact on the customer, that they at the end of the day will say this is much faster. But it needs to be also more stable, that we are able to reach this and step by step.
Yeah, and this goes in that direction that you were talking earlier about, start to measuring the flow of the user and the overall experience instead of just like individual metrics. So yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Do you go to your next?
Cool.
Prevention?
Yeah, that's the next question. How can we prevent this, that this hits production, or that we are alarmed in the same second? That
the only way would be to make site speed runs part of the CI, right? And that would be Insanely expensive, I assume. So that's
we could run it in a non-blocking way of the deployment end-to-end tests. So if the deployment happens and they do the smoke test, that at the end of the smoke test, we do also a run, which is non-blocking, which means that we are not blocking anything, because that's currently a little bit of a problem that as soon as you block the deployment on staging, this is already an incident. So this means that if we would find a way that we run our tests also at the exact time, and simply this will escalate if the number is increased by X% compared to the last run, I think then we would be already in a much nicer space.
I have locally, like I have a script that I once I showed at the performance application session, never had the chance to actually convert it into something usable. It measures, it unfortunately doesn't measure LCP, but it's like it's extensible to include the LCP, like the web vitals measurements there. So what it does, it runs the like it can run on any number of routes for the current branch. Then it switches, like it saves the results, then switches to master and runs all the tests on master at the same time. So then it spits out the comparison table, like what went up, what went down, and whether those changes are significant. So I do have such script. It needs some love, but it might be a good sort of good addition to the to like lighter version than the side speed, I guess, for CI. We could check that out and see whether it makes sense to incorporate that into the CI, or we better off with just pulling side speed into CI and have reliable results. With side speed, it's just problematic with like, you know, switching the branches and making sure that things are sort of in sync so that we compare apples to apples. But we could probably create write some script that does all, like automates the process and runs the side speed results on the current branch and runs the side speed results on master. The problem is that like this is the problem that my script is prone to, that the moment we switch branches, the first run on the new branch will inevitably throw way too higher numbers, because we need to wait for the, like when I run it on the local machine, we have to rebuild the webpack, we have to do all sorts of things. So technically what my script does, it reruns on the new branch all the tests, but it throws away the first run because it's just unreliable.
Yeah, and the testing in the quality team do the same. They load the page first.
Yeah.
So Tim, you have a point here.
Yes.
Activating the alerts.
Yeah, I would start. I just looked at site speed. They have an alert system through Grafana alerts. So this might be something that we simply start there, of setting it up there. This would mean that we have a couple of hours delay, and we need to take into consideration that we have definitely especially on a couple of pages, day and night differences. The other thing is I'm currently using gtmetrics.com on the outside to also do basically test against our test runners how the numbers are. So that might be also something that we can, I can get easily a budget for that. And the other thing, where I simply love the name, I haven't tried it out, that's on my list for this week, is Debug Bear. they seem to be pretty good on alerts and stuff like that, and recognizing if there is a change. So I have currently on GT metrics at least when stuff is offline. The problem, I tried 4 different solutions. The others had always one big problem, like Pingdom in reality has no connectivity limitation and stuff like that. So it runs quite different every time. But yeah, maybe let's start with the Grafana alerts.
We clearly can start there. There is just one problem. Like this is the reactive alarm, right? So
yeah,
technically the damage has been done. And in order to revert this, we will have to go through the process of pushing these changes through a merge request, push it, and it will hit the production in just like, if we're lucky, in like 24 hours. If we're not lucky, it will hit even longer. So this is clearly the thing that we have to enable, and this is better than nothing. But we definitely, I think we should still consider doing the proactive alarming, like integrate something into the CI so that we would be able to actually prevent, not to fix, but prevent the things before they hit master.
We tried this out 1.5 or 2 years ago. The problem was always to create a net situation in the runner. The shared runners were impacted so much performance-wise that you couldn't rely that the performance of the server that you're running is always the same. So what happened is that you, if you had numbers from another runner comparing to, then they were sometimes really different, like a second or so. And if you compared it to the machine themselves, then you basically need to run one branch and then run the other branch, and that gets then super long in the compilation because you want to run a production build in reality and stuff like that. So the question is how costly it also gets. We shouldn't forget how costly in time, money, and nerves CI stuff is. We have done. Yeah, it's always difficult. So
would it be maybe as an option, like to make this to make it a job that is not run by default, that is technically disabled, but for the merge requests where the performance impact is arguable and like, or a technical reviewer or a maintainer suspects that this might impact performance, they would just be able to run that job, not like part of the full CI process, but explicitly run the job and then get the results. And because like I was pulled in a lot of merge requests to run those performance tests, right? But it's not the not sustainable way of measuring performance of merge requests.
I think that would be nice.
Yeah. Okay. So technically, like, run performance tests on demand, kind of. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool.
And I will take a look to get started with Grafana alerts, or if anyone else wants to take a look at that, so that we simply have one page to start with. So that would be. I need to read through that stuff, how it works.
Yeah, this sounds good. What I was, and I think I've talked about this in the past with Andrew Newdigate, which was if there was some way for us to leverage the existing performance tests that we have and connect them in some way to the already in place systems for alerts would be awesome. I don't know if you can use those alerts on SiteSpeed to kind of like kick it off. But the way that I think about it is creating another parallel way of alerting us that something went wrong might be more productive to use the one that we already have, the same channels, but just a note.
But yeah, maybe we start experimenting in our research performance channel, and then see if that goes well. I need to check if they are. I know that we have 2 or 3 different solutions in place for alerting.
Okay.
And the question is how reliable. I would love to see that we are reliable. I've seen, going that alarms off too often, and that is also then. But yeah, that's a very good point that we have it in the same channels, of course.
Yeah.
Good.
I have one more idea. I'm sorry to take even more time here, but just for the cases where we for the routes where we have the user timing API metrics enabled, we could also have the deferred script that is running when the browser is idle, and that would, for example, send the data to some, I don't know, to what alerting mechanism, so that we could have comparison of two different things.
That's a job for Sentry, I guess.
Yeah, probably Sentry could gather those numbers, and if the numbers spike all of a sudden, then it would alert us.
Yeah.
But this is more for user timing metrics enabled.
This sounds really good if you have a budget. So if you have a performance budget and every time something goes over by X%, you would send them, but limit, I don't know, we could limit it to not repeat the same alert a bunch of times, but this sounds like a really good improvement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll write it down here.
We could take a look at that.
Yeah. Yes, go on. We have more points on the agenda. We have we have 34 minutes, so we're good. Just checking. My brain of the 30 minutes is already getting rest. Never mind. We got time. Any more points here on the prevention of LCP, or are we good to go on to the next one?
I think we are good to go to simply get started with the both approaches in that sense. So yeah.
Right. Dennis. Nice. So yeah, next point. So yes, as I said, we have the improved way of preloading Monaco whenever we need it, and this is actually now we support both types of links, prefetch and preload. I was surprised to figure out that we didn't support prefetch previously. So we have prefetch and preload. I've added the documentation. So the enablement is really trivial. So technically, we have the helper method in HAML views, because it doesn't make sense to put it into the view. We need to do it as soon as possible. Means in HAML. So we have the prefetch asset tags. Sort of slot or whatever it is called, in or lambda in Rails, right? And then we can list any named chunk that is defined in Webpack configuration. So we can preload, prefetch anything that is defined as named chunk in Webpack configuration. And the documentation now is using Monaco as an example, obviously, but this technically means that we can granularly define the pages where we want to prefetch Monaco and where we want to preload Monaco. So the difference is explained in the documentation. So technically, we use prefetch when we assume that the next hit will be Monaco enabled, and preload on the pages where we actually do know that we need Monaco. So the numbers for the edit pages went down as well on the charts now on the dashboard for the edit interfaces, because we are technically Monaco is very late discovered resource, because especially if it goes through the web view components. So in this particular case, we preload it as soon as possible, and when we hit the view component that loads the source editor, we already have it in cache technically. So there is nearly no delay in fetching the editor itself. And for the prefetch, it's clear we are prefetching. We do not have any performance impact, because both prefetch and preload, they do not parse, they do not execute JavaScript, they just load and put in cache. It's just the difference is just with what priority. So preload uses high priority and prefetch uses lowest priority. So prefetch happens when the browser is idle. So when nothing actually is affected.
When it's completely
So yeah, this is really good. Yes, I will announce this on the Tuesday's Frontend Weekly call. so that people could start using this, and how this will be done. It's next Tuesdays. Yeah, because I didn't get the documentation merged. Like the documentation was literally merged after the front end call yesterday on Tuesday. So
that's how it is. It's always like that.
It's always like this. I was like preparing the things, and then it's just like,
thanks, Dennis.
Okay, yeah. But this, do you have any questions about this?
No, sounds awesome. Thanks a lot for that.
Cool. And then we get to the next point. So I've already made all the preparations for a source editor to include for the source code group to include source editor into the Blob viewer thing. So we prefetch Monaco at the moment. So we do prefetch Monaco on Blob view and preload it on edit. But once we include source editor into the Blob view, we have to move this whole construction one level up. So we prefetch on repository view or any other route that we expect to be the one before hitting the Blob view. So we prefetch there and we preload on Blob view and Blob edit, of course. So that's just, that move will be really tricky.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds great.
That's it. And that's exactly what allowed us to come back to our normal LCP numbers.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is great. I think this goes in line with what we were talking with Paul raising on that thing that we should potentially not load on all pages, but on certain pages.
Yeah.
Clever about it. And this makes sense. And I'm thinking we'll probably just any repository browser folder that as soon as it renders, we'll just add it to that page so that we can start pre-fetching it properly. But yeah,
exactly. Yep.
Good. That's awesome. Any more details there?
No, I think like everything is described in the documentation how to do these things. So we abstract all the complexities technically in the helper. So it's you have the way of either preloading, this is the default behavior, or you explicitly have to say prefetch this resource instead of preload. Yeah. That's it.
Cool. Nice. Great progress. Just about preloading, prefetching, caching stuff. I looked, of course, last Friday I had finally time to look again at the service worker stuff, and then Sentinel-1 hit my machine. Was not a great experience, so I gave up on that. I need to revisit. There is one spec still failing. It seems a little bit flaky that it's weird because it's just that one spec that is losing the login. I need to run a couple of more full runs to see if others are also flaky, but there's just one spec left at the moment that's failing, which is a weird one because it's for downloading the CSV export, and sometimes it's not logged in anymore when the service worker is activated, which is really weird. I need to deep dive, but it was no fun at all with Sentinel-1, but it should be better now. So good.
Cool. I have an update for the refactor. I think you might want to know where we are. So our OKRs in this quarter are around this refactor, but also improving performance of large pages on source code, just to support the overall theme. And we have a couple of work for performance on 14.0, and we have a shift in product manager. So there's a couple of instability there, but we'll continue to push this on. And currently we're continuing to work on the Blob header to make sure that we reuse code that is already there, that we make everything okay. Jacques, who's late, he had to do something today, but he's already implemented the instant load directive on GitLab UI. And in this milestone 14.0, we're going to be implementing it already on the repository browser so that we can start preloading some things. And he's even going to be looking into preloading the folder of, like, as soon as the person interacts with that particular folder, immediately kick it off. So we'll start to reap the benefits right away. For the viewers themselves, we expect to start working on the basic ones for the text in 14.1. so that we can have like the basic, the text, the empty. So it's kind of, the empty won't have anything about Monaco, of course. So those are the simpler ones. And what we will be creating in this step is a system to not just enable it by the feature flag, but beyond, after the feature flag is on, only enable it for certain file types, so that certain file types will render right away. Others that don't have a viewer yet will still go to the HAML. And this way we can roll out progressively as we go.
That's awesome.
Implementing the viewers.
Would there still be an option to do the old viewers with the Radiance HTML injection?
With the what, sorry?
With the loading the HTML from the server and injecting that instead of doing a full page reload?
Ooh, I didn't think of that. That doable, of course. I'll create an issue for it and put it in Epic. That's really smart.
And the other thing, we should also take a look how the instant preloader or however we call this thing might also help us on the large MRs or so. Because if you hover over the tab because it's the time that takes us so long, and if you are hovering over the tab, it will not. You will click on it most probably. So that might be also something where we can gain a little bit more out of it.
And you mean in the merge request, you would be where? It would be on the merge request list?
Yeah, on anywhere we load them data, especially I think the switching between the comments and the diff page or a tab in that sense.
Okay, so, we'll see where we can leverage this.
But it's to some extent with the large MRs, the experience of, okay, I click on the tab and then it's like.
Yeah. No, all right. That's already given me things to think about. So cool. Dennis, you have a comment here?
Yeah, I have it more technical, but this question, like probably Jacques is the person to answer this. I just don't know where to raise this question. But I noticed that the repository app is creating the custom blob viewer. I'm just wondering why not to reuse the existing one. Because it just creates again these two different source of
yeah, I think we talked about this.
Good point.
But the existing one is used by snippets, and I guess this is related to the fact that you're going to include the source editor by default. But that would be that's the thing. Like if we would be using the same component, then the snippets would benefit from that as well, I guess.
True. One blob viewer to rule them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would invite you to. So I wasn't involved that deep. So yeah, Jacques is definitely the person to. There's probably a reason or just an oversight, and we can merge them. But reach out to him. Okay. I would go into the Epic of the refactor and just ask it directly, because that's the best. Or just come into our channel. The issue is more open and more public, but whatever works for you. But reach out to him. There might be an explanation. If there isn't, just create an issue and we'll find a way to schedule it to merge it early, so that we don't have these two things. Cool. Thanks for the call out.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any more updates? Any more things you want to share?
No. I would really love to see the service worker in place, because I believe that we can do a couple of funky things with the hard caching there. The other thing is that I think there's a lot of gain that we can get out of the IndexedDB stuff. I think that's something that's especially super interesting for MRs. Because then you can also go ahead, if you have a service worker in place for the domain, and you could also say, hey, how many MRs do you have assigned? Oh, there are 5 MRs. And let's sort them by the latest activity. Let's start preloading when you just landed on GitLab, so that when you hit the MR, the data is already loaded and we diff. We want to take a look and try this maybe on the boards, because there we have currently a little bit of a waterfall problem, because you need to load for the boards first with a very expensive and slow call at the moment, which is getting improved, etc. But you need to load the columns of your board because they are so custom. So this means you hit the page, you load the columns, and then you start loading the issues. But if you would already take as granted for a board, okay, I'm just taking that from my local cache and then I diff against it, the list of the columns at least to get started, then you can save 3 seconds. And that might be something also super interesting for MRs, because if we, there's a very high chance that if you have MRs assigned, that you will hit them and that we already preload stuff. Would be cool.
Yeah, we're on the same boat right now. Yeah. We just want to make sure that we can test the current implementation. I can share that the biggest question isn't whether this will be beneficial or not. I think it's clear it will. The question, even because we already saw it working with the library that Thomas used, and it's pretty working really nicely. I think we have some holdups of order of requests, but that's irrelevant to the IndexedDB part. The biggest questions are these: security and cache invalidation, because of course the security part is where we're storing things in the local storage, local client side that are viewable by the users. And if the user is removed from the project, if the cache is still there, he might be able to still see that that cache, that data. Now, one of the tasks I have is to reach out to our stable counterpart on security team, see what ideas they have. Should we use some sort of obfuscation that is cheap on the front end, or can we live with this? Like, he was given access to that project. So we want to make sure that we check. And the other part about the cache invalidation, we could definitely piggyback on the service worker to do repetitive checks. Should we clear the database for anything older than X? But yeah, we're exploring those two things right now. We're having some issues tracking the numbers specific for this, mainly because my machine is dying. But I have a plan to take care of that over the next 2 days or so. So we should have some numbers by next week. And then I'll share with, I know that you pinged Natalia, and Natalia's already looking into this because of the issue boards. So once we have a conclusion or somewhat related, I'll share on the research performance channel and potentially on the front end channel as well. So the front end weekly call, so that we can all learn from this exploration.
Cool. Yeah, that's a tough topic on how to solve. How have others solved that?
I think so. I think the question about being removed from a project, it's not as critical for other projects. Like if you go on Code Sandbox, like, I don't know if they use it or not, but I'm just saying, like, you open a project, you have access to it, period. And you interact with it often enough to leverage that cache. And maybe the question is exactly how long do we just keep the cache in the browser? And if maybe we just do it in a way that it's only valid for that one session. And the next time we'll just clear the browser immediately as soon as you open it. Could be something like that. But so yeah. So I think the cache invalidation kind of depends a little bit on the service worker, because that will open a lot of options for us to clear it. Because otherwise we'll only be able to clear it if the person comes to the merge request page again, which could be then used to exploit or have access to. So if I go to my home page, I have access to the whole database. How does that work? So anyway, but we'll explore that.
Yeah. There are some libraries for basically that sit on top of IndexedDB to encrypt and decrypt, at least. But it's also always
costly. Yeah, that's the question. I'll reach out. So I'll leverage security team. They might not have the front end experience, but the theoretical risk management, they will definitely help with that part. Because we already have stuff that we keep in local storage already.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this. The only thing here is that we're caching the calls that we do to the server that carry the diff. I mean, they'll still have a pretty complex jigsaw puzzle to put together and to go into the request and grab all the files and grab all the lines. But the data is there essentially, and it carries code. That's I think the worry is the code that comes in the requests. So maybe we can obfuscate just the diff lines, just some weird. And here's the thing. So one of the things we talked about is having sort of a string come back from the server to identify the version of the merge request so that we can match it to the version of the, like a UUID or something. And if that UUID changes, so if you use a UUID or something to obfuscate like the diff lines, then every time that thing changes, the obfuscation changes as well. So it would be hard for them to catch that. So there's a couple of things in our minds. So we'll have to explore that if the approach is valid. Right now, we're in the step of validating the things and quantifying the gains. I think that's important for this effort. So once we have numbers, we'll share.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm following. Sometimes when I'm seeing the notifications from the MR, then I'm like looking a little bit into it.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's it. I don't have anything else, gentlemen.
Me neither.
Thank you so much for the updates, and thank you so much, Dennis, for the push, and Tim as well. I'll share this on YouTube, and then I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Perfect. Have a great day.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.